spring is here, and with it comes hope and a smidge of good weather right before the summer heat. And with it, I thought it'd be cool to give you some book recommendations that are great for spring. So I have heard a lot of people do seasonal reading, where they relate what they're reading to something that matches for that time of year. So since we're heading into spring, I thought I'd give some recommendations of books that I think would be great springtime books, as well as some that are on my TBR. First, we have Walden by Henry David Thoreau. This is a reflective philosophical memoir of a guy who spent about 2 years in a cabin in the woods with minimal interaction with other people, and he kind of builds off the land, eats off the land, is really in tune with nature during this time. So even though he experiences every season, I think that focus, that detail on nature, that beauty, just, I don't know, resonated so much with springtime. And I think that reflective state of possibility and where are we coming from and where are we going kind of thing. And then also, even for people who obviously none of us lived in the mid 1800s, but even for those who didn't live rurally, I think we have collective like American nostalgic for like that connection we had more readily with nature. Like so many of us are like so isolated from it that I think just reading about it, we're like, oh, that sounds so lovely, which is why I think there is such a movement of like tiny house living and like off-grid living and sustainable living. I think that's why we're kind of, as a culture, circling back on that. But anyway, a great read, and I think it'd be perfect for the springtime. Kind of get you excited for getting out a little bit more in nature as the weather gets better. Next, we have The Sand County Almanac by Aldo Leopold. This is written, it's nonfiction, by a environmentalist, by an eco-philosopher. I read this in college actually, and it wasn't dense like you might expect from a college read. It's actually quite accessible and very beautiful writing of nature and different plants and animals that he encounters in the like Wisconsin countryside. And it's, I don't know, like 200 pages. It's not a huge book. I was so drawn in by the beautiful scenery that he describes and like the mating rituals of these different birds and how like wonderful and awe-inspiring nature can be. And it's not a completely pessimistic take on humans and the environment, which is easy to do in the current climate. So I think it's a great read and just a great reminder to respect nature, get out in nature. Next, we have Spindle's End by Robin McKinley. So this is a fairy tale retelling of Sleeping Beauty. If you haven't read anything by Robin McKinley, she has a great but very unique voice and style of writing. So it's kind of hit or miss for people. They either love her or hate her style of writing, but it's a little bit slow in this book for sure, but very homey, very quirky and charming. Talking animals, you have a sentient house. I just remember it really fondly. There's a great female friendship in it. And I don't know, something about a lot of fairy tale retellings feels very spring to me. I think it's that whimsy and possibility element, but also with the Sleeping Beauty, you have like everything reviving and coming back to life. And that's a very much a winter into spring kind of journey. So I think it's very fitting. And then to round it off, we have Enchantment by Orson Scott Card. This is another Sleeping Beauty retelling, but this time it's more of like a modern Russian take on it. You have that element of a budding romance, finding yourself, a little bit of adventure. This one has some time travel in it. Funny enough, I was looking on Goodreads because I didn't remember this book very well, and I was telling a friend, I'm like, oh no, I'm like, did I just make stuff up in my head? Because I vividly remember there being a bear in the story, and I cannot find a single review or synopsis that mentions the bear. And I'm like, oh my god, did I just make up an entire element of this book that doesn't exist, or am I mixing it up with a different book completely? There's a bear. There's a bear. I almost lost my mind, but I looked enough in the reviews. Someone mentioned a bear. She hasn't lost it. Anyway, so good read to pick up. So those are the 4 that I have personally read and think would be a great read or reread for spring. You have a lot of that like nature element that, especially after like a long winter, I think it's just so refreshing. Or if you're at the tail end of winter, to kind of just like remind you and give you hope and inspire you to be like, oh, this too shall end. Nature will come again. And then next I have 3 books that are on my TBR, my to be read, but I won't go into depth with them because I haven't read them. So the first is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. This is a classic that I haven't gotten around to, but feels very spring-esque. You have young adult, you have coming to age, you know, you have all the possibilities of being young and not completely bitter and jaded and salty about the world. And then it takes place on like a farm in the countryside. So very quaint, ideal-esque, starting to get back into the groove of things, right? So maybe you haven't read a lot, this might be a good reread. It's probably going to be, you know, a lighter thing to get into. And everything I've heard about Anne of Green Gables is just really cute, really sweet, nice characters, nice relationship. I think there's a romance at some point, but I don't know if that's book 1, so don't hold me to that. But it's on my to-read list. Next, we have The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. God, I cannot say names for the life of me. I'm so sorry. So, Secret Garden. We have another young adult coming of age. It's a classic. You got the nature element with the gardens. You have the possibility of young adulthood, the kind of mystery of this garden, of this like British mansion, and it's historical fiction. So I don't know about you, but I ended up reading a lot of books early on that were British, and so I have a weird nostalgia for like England and the English countryside, even though I didn't grow up there. So maybe I'm alone on that, but I just feel like springtime's a great time for nostalgia. I don't know why. I don't think there's a bad time of year, but I feel like summer is very much all about the present moment and being spontaneous, and like spring is very much like hope and nostalgia and inspiration and like, you know, just coming to life again. And lastly, this might be, I haven't read it, so maybe it's completely out of place. I don't know. I just did the Googles, okay? Don't sue me. But that is Mothering Sunday by Graham Swift. So apparently these 2 young lovers met on a warm May day in 1924, and the narrative goes back and forth between 1924 leading up to the end of the century. And so you have a budding young romance, you have that nostalgia factor because it's going back and forth. I think there's like a beauty to a beginning romance that's very spring-esque, like new things are in bloom, everything feels new and fresh and exciting, and emotions are at a peak. And then this is again a British historical fiction. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm saying the same thing for every book, but it's true. It's true. So what are you reading this spring? Do you have any spring books on the list? I would love to know. Let me know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!